Good morning, and thank you all for coming. I'm Legita Wilson. I have the pleasure of introducing you to Christina Ferroli. Most of you likely already know her, but you may not know a few things about her. Christina Ferroli retired from Purdue Extension, Marion County after 22 years of service as a health and human sciences extension educator. She is an established grant writer, successfully securing ongoing funding for the Purdue Extension Signature Program, Dining with Diabetes, and for the Summer Camp Enhancement Program through the Summer Youth Program Fund. Christina joined Indiana Cooperative Development Center in 2021 as a grants program coordinator and works with farmers market managers and community partners across the state to establish the Indiana Farmers Market Community of Practice, whose mission is to grow and strengthen a key component of Indiana's local food system, farmers markets. Christina is a food safety expert and has been a ServSafe instructor with the Indiana Restaurant and Lodging Association for 25 years. She provides food retail, consumer food safety, and safe home food preservation trainings and resources. I'm sure that she has a lot more experience than I have shared with you today.
Thank you, Legita. Yeah, I do. And part of the work I did for Purdue Extension was involved data collection. So that's just part of an automatic part of my wheelhouse. You always have to show impact and results once you get money from different funders. So it's all about data, and then data collection. So let's get started. Why collect data? Well, data provides you with the information that will help you assess how the farmer's market is doing, and it also help you plan for the future. Data provides a baseline from which to measure future change. Data will help you identify trends. It will help you make informed decisions. Data also helps you answer key questions that you may have about your farmer's market. And lastly, data shows the impact of your farmer's market, because all farmers markets have an impact on the communities that they serve. And this is how you will determine it, by collecting data. All right, there are different types of data. So we're going to take a look. Basically, there's quantitative data and qualitative data. Let's take a look at quantitative data. It is, for example, vendor and customer demographics. You could collect the number of vendors per day that attend your markets, or the number of vendor categories. How many different types of vendors do you have? That's what vendor category would kind of fit into. You can also collect the data of average distance food travels to get to your market. Again, this is concrete numbers and concrete information. Then there's always gross sales data. And it's important for farmers markets to look at the different vendor categories and break down sales data by vendor category, like all your ag vendors, basically your farmer vendors, all your prepared food, all your crafts. These are all separate categories that you have to collect data for if you have them at your market. That way it'll help tell the story of your market. And then last but not least, there's economic impact of the market. So data will be able to, you can collect economic impact data. And this was actually mentioned yesterday in one of the sessions. You can collect SNAP EBT along with WIC and senior FMMP sales data to show how your market supports food access in your community. You can also collect information such as number of acres of land and ag production supported, again, to show the impact of your community on the ag sector, basically. So there's a lot of data that can be collected, and this is all just numbers. Distance traveled, number of vendors, sales data, and this is all quantitative. Yeah, let me see. The other type of data that you can collect is qualitative data. Qualitative data is descriptions, anecdotes, opinions, quotes, and interpretations. And so you have this description or an anecdote. What can you do with it? How does that impact my farmer's market? Well, through qualitative data, you can get new ideas about your market from your customers. So you can actually, it's basically what we refer to as feedback. You can come up with the why. that you can then share with your community partners and stakeholders. The why actually will support your market, or why the community and partners should support your market. So the why is also very important. Qualitative data can also help you evaluate the impact of your market's decisions. So you made a change. What effect did it have? You can show the numbers through quantitative data, but then there's that human factor, the other impact. And that's what qualitative data brings to your market. Qualitative data will also help you make new decisions. Why are you even exploring something? Well, you got feedback from your customers that they'd like to see this. Well, then that's why you're going to pursue a certain direction. Qualitative data will also help you tell the story of your market, and that's extremely important. It's not all numbers and facts. It's also the stories that help your market show the impact of what you're doing in your community. And that also ties in, it will help illustrate the overall health and performance of your market for reports, outreach, news stories also. So there's a lot of ways that both quantitative and qualitative data will impact and help you in your farmers market day in and day out. So that said, what data should you collect? Well, gross sales data for sure. That's the quantitative data. That will help you definitely share numbers. And numbers are really important for stakeholders, community partners. If you're looking for grant funding, numbers basically speak loudly. And we'll talk about gross sales data. You also need to collect visitor counts. How many people attend your market every day or every season, every Saturday, every month? So visitor counts are important. And the last one, I'm not sure if it's the visitor surveys. This is the way you would collect the qualitative data. And visitor surveys gives you that little extra story, that little extra information to help you make changes. So all three are really important to markets, and it should be used in making decision making. So there's pros and cons to what you do and how you implement it, but you should be at least collecting gross sales and visitor counts data. And we're going to go through how to do that and what each one is. Collecting gross sales data. Well, the goal of a farmer's market is to generate income for their vendors. So you need to understand, and your vendors, I know they're very vocal and they'll tell you if they're happy or not happy. But a lot of times I'm sure the market managers agree, you see one thing and your vendors are kind of telling you something else. That's how collecting gross sales data can help you. You're basically tracking sales, your vendor sales weekly. And by doing that, you'll be able to assess the market's health and viability. You will have data to share. If a vendor says, well, XYZ happened, well, this is what our numbers say. Sales data, you can also help once you have the sales data, you can track whether any activities that you do to improve your market are having an economic impact. So your activities, you implement them to increase sales, to have a positive economic impact. Well, it may impact all your vendors and may impact a sector of your vendors. So sales data is a way to show that you're having an impact, what type of impact you're having over what type of vendors and over the overall of your market. So data collection, especially gross sales, is really important to show impact and basically the health and viability of your market. Other factors to consider when you're collecting gross sales data, one way it'll help you is that after several years of tracking, you will start to see trends in your market season. You can see week-to-week trends, month-to-month. You can even see season-to-season trends. And only by collecting this data will you be able to see the impact, whatever factor it is. It could be the number of vendors you have, the type of vendors, the sales data will help you make decisions like when to open and close for the season, when to host special events, when you need to boost advertising. Is your advertising marketing working correctly? Do you need more new or diverse vendors? And only by collecting sales data will you be able to see this for yourself. So the power of gross sales data is innumerable. Sorry. How do you collect sales data? Well, you do need 100% participation from all vendors in order to be effective. The system needs to be anonymous. You need a system in place to collect the sales data. So this is something you're going to have to work out, what works for your farmer's market, because what could work, a system works for one market may not work for the other. It's important that you're going to explain to your vendors why you're collecting the sales data. You need to have a transparent process in place for once you collect the data, how you're going to use the data, and also how you will share the data. Data is good. However, just not doing anything with the data, it's just data if you file it away. You can make it work for you, basically. So if you're going to go to the problem to collect it, then determine how you can use it effectively for your farmer's market. And most importantly, report back to vendors how the market is performing based on the sales data. Because remember, your vendors only have their perspective in mind, and they may talk to the vendor next to them or their fellow, their colleagues, buddies, whatever. But with the sales data, you can see the overall impact that your market is having, and that what changes you've implemented work, don't work, how events are affecting it. So sales data is like very, very critical in your decision-making process. So how and what to collect. So let's start off with basically collecting weekly gross sales data. That's weekly, you multiply it by 4, and then by month, and then over a season. So weekly, if you're a 22 season market, you have 22 data points basically. So weekly is ideal. If you can't do that, then you decide what you can do. Any data is better than no data. You can use paper slips with the information you want written on the slips. And that's based on your vendor makeup. It's based on your market. There are some templates in the resources I'm going to share with you, so you don't have to start from scratch. So you can use paper slips that you hand out to the vendors, and then they're turned in to the market via an envelope. Then a lot of markets do use the envelope system, because at the same time they collect SNAP EBT tokens, market tokens, POP tokens. So if you're doing these programs, this is how you keep track of how many were returned to the market for reimbursement. You can have the vendors return it to the market booth. You can have volunteer market staff collect from each vendor at the end of market. You can use a centrally located collection box, or if you like, you can take the paper slip and create it using an online form like Google Forms, Microsoft Forms, or SurveyMonkey, and send it to each vendor before the market ends, with the expectation is they need to complete it by the end of the day, basically. So there's a lot of ways that you can collect the data. And again, this is all anonymous. This is how you can keep it anonymous. And the choice is up to you, however you feel is the most appropriate and easy process to implement at your market. Sorry, okay. So just reiterating how and what to collect. The best practices for markets is to collect at minimum your agricultural sales. So your produce sales, your meats, poultry, eggs, each one separately, how much you sold in each category, your value-added product sales like honey, jellies, jams, any of your value-added products, your prepared food sales categories, your home-based vendors, craft sales, self-care product sales. And don't forget, you do need to collect total gross sales in each of these categories. So you could do total meat. You don't need sales per individual item. Make it easy for the vendor to share with you, just total produce. This could be a way to keep track of what produce is being sold at market. I know that question has come up before. But again, it's up to the market manager and how they feel comfortable collecting the data. You can just do one produce. Like I said, fruits, vegetables, big categories. You don't need to get into the nitty gritties, and it's always total gross sales. So depending on your vendors, you're going to be collecting this data. And then looking at your sales data, how are you going to look at it? How are you going to analyze it? With the paper slip method, you have to input the data yourself or a volunteer or one of your market staff into a document like Excel spreadsheets. You can also use Google Sheets. So you'd have to organize an Excel spreadsheet to work for you, depending on what you collect, basically. So then you enter it each week and then tally it by month and then by season. And it is recommended that you track by week, month, and season, gross total sales, sales by category, breakdown and averages. Don't forget to track your number of vendors per week, and then average sales by vendors. And the Farmers Market Coalition does have some resources. I'm currently having issues trying to access their information, and I'm going to be in contact with them to see what they have available for members. And we were a state membership, and we're going to renew our state membership. Under state membership, markets can get free access to all the resources the Farmers Market Coalition offers. So I will announce when we're back up with that program. But basically, these are the breakdowns. Use Excel spreadsheets or Google Sheets. Unfortunately, it's currently DIY. And if we want to have other markets share or markets want to share their spreadsheets, but it's really based on your market. So you can share up to a certain point, but you really have to create it and tailor it to your vendors. So hopefully that's not too challenging. All right, moving on. The next data you want to collect, which is really important, are your visitor counts. And you are actually counting the visitors to the market. And it's very specific in visitors because some visitors may be your shoppers, but some aren't. Some are just coming through to check out what's going on at your farmer's market. They could be coming from out of town, out of state, just for an event. And if they shop there, all the more better. So visitor counts are important. They provide an indicator on how the market is doing on that day. Knowing that customer traffic is increasing, decreasing, or holding steady is equal to taking the pulse of your market. You can get good understanding of, how vibrant and how healthy your market is. This helps your market manager and board make important decisions. So visitor counts are extremely important. Just note that when you're doing visitor counts, it's important to prepare your vendors, market staff, and volunteers ahead of time. They need to know what's happening. Everyone needs to be on board, basically. How often do you do visitor counts? Well, if you conduct just one count per season, you will get a basic understanding of how many visitors you have coming that particular day. So it's just a snapshot in time for that season. That's it. And though it's nice to know, you really can't make very many decisions based on just one count per season. The more counts you have, the more data you will have to work with to see patterns, anomalies, and trends. So that is one reason you want to do more than just one count per season. And the goal or best practice is to do at least 2 counts, preferably 3 or 4 per season. Why? Because this provides you more data points to see patterns and trends. It'll provide you solid data that will help your vendors and market manager and market leadership to make good decisions. So from that point, by having these visitor counts, then you can make some solid decisions. It's just not based on one vendor's opinion of that day. And again, remember, you have a variety of different vendors, and not all will do well on different market days. And visitor count data can help you understand what's going on. And then if you look at who's at the market which vendors you have that market, you can start comparing and understanding what's going on at your market and see trends and patterns. So if you can just do one, that's great. Preferably 2, but ideally 3 to 4 per season. When do you conduct your visitor counts? Well, consider choosing dates carefully and then repeat visitor counts on those same dates each year. And that's why you need to be really careful, consider your dates carefully. You also, it's important to make notes about other factors that may have impacted the counts on that date. So you need to know this is the day you did the visitor count, and then what happened in that market. What's the weather? What was traffic? Was there outside events that impacted your market? Did the town close streets? Was parking lots, parking facilities closed? Anything that could help understand any variation from month to month or the first to the second count. So it's really, or year to year. So it's really important that you know what's going on at your market that day. And visitor counts, it's important because they can answer, do visitors increase during events and afterwards? So think about your events, what's happening. If you want to see if your events have an impact, then you're going to do counts like during the event and then right afterwards. Visitor counts can help you understand, are the hours you're in market right? They can also help you answer, is the rate and frequency people come to the market at different entrances, is that impacted? Are the entrances effective? Why would you want to know that? Well, entrances can impact vendors and where they're located. So this helps driver vendor location and reshuffling and overall vendor satisfaction with your market, basically. So visitor counts are important. Timing it's all about timing. Other things you must consider. So once you've decided your dates and your times that you're going to do your visitor counts, extremely important to look at your market's layout, because your market's layout will affect your ability to conduct the counts. You need to look at all your points of entry, because you'll need someone at all your points of entry. If you have secondary ways people enter the market, you may have to look at blocking those off, because unless you put a volunteer at those secondary entries, you may not get total counts for that day. Other things to consider, are there ways to conduct counts with technology, or are you going to use the manual click counters? Some of the technology I read about were like phone apps, so then you could just ping people's phones that are coming in. I saw a reference to drones being used, and then smaller markets can count cars also. So there's a lot of different strategies if just head counting or people counting is not realistic for your market. The other thing you need to consider under logistics is, are you using market staff or volunteers? And then if you are, how many will you need to help you to do the counts? And again, the market layout will determine what staffing you will need for the counts, and then what methodology will you use. That's coming up next. So different methods for implementing counts, visitor counts. You have the full visitor count method, the sample count, and the walkthrough counts. And which one you choose will have its pluses and its minuses, its drawbacks, its strengths and its drawbacks, basically. The best is, well, the hardest is the full visitor count, because you attempt to count every single visitor attending the market during one day. And the size of your market will basically say if this is possible or not for you. What most markets will do is use sample counts. So in a sample count, you're going to pick a certain time of each hour to conduct the count, to conduct counting. And then the final count is adjusted by a multiplier to get an estimate of how many visitors entered, or how many visitors you had during that hour. So for example, you're gonna do a 10-minute count at 10 after the hour at each entry point. And then you'll get the multiplier. You can multiply it by 3 for half hour, and then I'm going to do the math wrong for the hour. So that's how the multiplier and sample counts walk through. And the one resource I will share with you goes through that and the multipliers, basically. So walkthrough counts, that's when you have your volunteers, one or more counters walk through the market at a predetermined time and take a head count of each person at the market. Again, the size of the market will determine which one you do. And I'm pretty positive most markets, especially the larger ones, are using the sample counts and having volunteers posted at each entry point. But the walkthrough counts can also work. And you do it for a set amount. You can do it like the sample count. You conduct it at set times and then use a multiplier if you wish. So those are your three methods. So you do have options when it comes to counts. So it's really important that you train your staff and volunteers, and they need to understand how they're going to count, the time frame. But it's also important for them to understand who to count. Will you count just adults or also children? Some markets count adults and older children because they rationalize that older children are also shoppers, which is fair. Some markets count children separately, so that's also a good strategy. Just remember that when you're training your counters, that you don't count visitors that re-enter, don't count vendors, and it's important to agree and to set standards so that the counts are consistent between your volunteers, your counters, and comparable over time. So you're going to do it the exact same way each time you do the count, week by week, season by season, however you're going to implement, month by month, whatever you decide to do. You need to do it the same way, because if you don't, then you're not going to be able to compare data. And again, the Farmers Market Coalition, I had found some resources, and I hope to be able to access those again. The Farmers Market Coalition, so we've now finished with visitor counts. I do want to go into surveys a little bit. The Farmers Market Coalition is really big on vendor surveys. You're going to collect the gross sales data from the vendors, but it's also nice to understand your vendors, and they do bring benefit and value to your market. So info collected from your vendors will tell you who is benefiting from selling at your market. So what type of vendors, how their farming and production practices also benefit the community. And the Farmers Market Metrics Guide under resources has 13 questions, that they're vendor specific questions that you can use with your vendors. And this is only once a season, and it could be in your vendor application. So if this is important to your market to highlight and showcase your vendors, your farmer vendors, then you may need to collect some surveys in order to share that information with your board and the community. So Farmers Market Metrics, the Farmers Market Coalition does have some resources, and I hope to have those for you all. They basically have the questions already written out, and it's a one time a year. So keep in mind that there are vendor surveys also that you can implement. Moving on to visitor surveys. This is the qualitative data that you're going to collect, and the qualitative data will complement your quantitative visitor count data. Basically, you're going to, with visitor surveys, you're going to understand more about your customers. When they answer visitor surveys, their responses will help you understand who are your customers. They will help you test theories about your customers and the market. You're not just going to be guessing. Their responses will fill gaps and provide actual data to share. And visitor survey responses will help you gain insight that may be missed by market leadership and vendors. They're only seeing what they want to see, and there could be a bigger picture at hand. And you can get at this bigger picture by doing visitor surveys. And a note, visitor surveys are typically done when visitor counts are done, because the two data sets together will create a full picture, basically. So visitor surveys are all about questions. They are questions you're going to ask your visitors, which, like I said, visitors, most of them are going to be your customers and shoppers. So, and those are the ones who are going to, again, they're going to answer your survey, basically. So you can ask your survey their demographics, where they live, like you can ask the zip code, their shopping habits. You can ask your customers what they want to see changed or held constant at the market, get some feedback. You can ask your customers questions about your marketing and advertising program. Is it working? Is it not working? Also, you can get, if you ask questions about your programs and events, what do they want? How do they feel about what's currently offered? Again, it's important that you let your visitors and vendors know when you are surveying. So let them know ahead of time. Hopefully they'll still, I mean, they'll come to market, but it's important, especially for your vendors, to be kept up to date and understand, so then they can help you with their customers and say, hey, we're conducting a survey today. Please go check it out. Your input is important to us. And above all, remember to keep the survey short. There is a document out there. It's called Market Umbrella Sticky Economic Evaluation Device, or SEED. It's a whole document, and I didn't put it as a resource, but I do have a site that provides this information for you. They developed, so Market Umbrella is a nonprofit that runs the Crescent Farmers Market in New Orleans, Louisiana. And they took on evaluation as a market, and they created this SEED survey. And it's used to measure economic impact of your market on your vendors, your host neighborhood, and your surrounding region. So it is an actual survey with questions, basically. Combined with visitor count on the same day, data analysis uses a multiplier effect to create impact report about spending for that day, and also for spending on the entire season by projecting those dollars and how they'll be recirculated within the large economy. So that was their whole purpose. That's the sticky part of the data. Like I said, there is a whole document out there on SEED that if you want to Google it, it's very high data collection. But the cool part is you have access to their surveys. And there's a SEED survey which asks these questions about the frequency which customers shop at the market, if the market is their primary reason for visiting the neighborhood on the day. So these are actual questions you may use. So this is a freebie for you. How much the customer estimates that they spent at the market. If they think they will spend money elsewhere in the neighborhood that day, this gets out into the community. You can share with surrounding businesses responses. If they feel like they will spend money, you can ask how much. You can even ask them how much they spent at your market. You're going to collect their zip code and gender. So these are actual questions that you can actually use to do a visitor survey. So I forgot I put this in there. So this is your freebie. And if you like to check it out, you can go to Market Share, this is the actual working website. I did go to that yesterday and today, so it does work. So that is a resource. Again, it's just a place to start. There's a lot to data analysis, but this is a way to start collecting the data and getting some results and answers for you to start looking at who your customers are, basically. All right, so visitor surveys, the actual survey. You can do a pen and paper survey, so you can take the questions from the previous slide and develop a pen and paper survey, print it, and have people fill it out, and then you collect it. You can take that survey and create it in Google Forms, Microsoft Forms, or SurveyMonkey, and then have a QR code and have people do the QR code that day at the market. And it's important that you keep the QR code activated only for that day, because you don't want others to come back 2 or 3 or a week later to provide you data. So if you want to save paper and do a QR code, once you've got your survey, you can go through Google Forms, Microsoft Forms, SurveyMonkey, and Canva will also do this, because Canva will also generate a code. Alternately, another way that you can ask questions is doing dot surveys. And so at the market, and basically each question would be on a chart piece of paper, and then you would have responses, and then your customers would put dots by those responses. So not all questions can be done through dot surveys, through charts and dots. Some work better than others, but for smaller markets, this may be a way to get some survey data done. So keep that in mind. There, I do have a resource for you that actually uses this strategy. It's the USDA Farmers Market. So pen and paper, having actual pen and paper copies there, taking the pen and paper and creating a QR code, having your visitors, your customers use the QR code, or if you actually want to do a chart and with dots, that is possible. If you decide to explore the seed survey tool, they do have an input your data online portal. I've not explored this, but if you are interested, we can talk after later to see if how this works. Again, this was developed for Market Umbrella, which is New Orleans, Louisiana, for the Crescent Market, but they seem to be making it more available. If you use Google Forms, Microsoft, or SurveyMonkey, your survey, your data is actually summarized for you, and you have the option of creating charts for it. So the easiest is just pen and paper survey. However, you're going to have to take the data and enter it. If you do want to do it that way, you can just then enter it into Google Forms, one of these, or you can actually create the form into it electronically, and the data will be automatically tallied for you. So you do have options depending on your market. Doing surveys and counts are great projects that you can engage, like high schools, community colleges, get volunteers to help you, basically find people who are tech savvy that can help you also create your survey, get it online. That way the data is already compiled for you. So please don't make this hard. Like I said, this is about sharing resources. We don't really have any formal program in Indiana at the moment. So what are the logistics involved if you're going to do a visitor survey? Well, you need to recruit surveyors, people to help you administer your survey, or answer questions on what is happening. So you need staff. The surveyors are going to either be your market staff, your volunteers, your board members, but you do need to have someone help you that day. You want to train your surveyors at least 15 to 30 minutes before the survey starts. Just go through the process, make sure everyone's on board on how it's going to work, how to answer questions when people come up and want to take the survey. Location is critical. Think about location. Markets are in the summer, so think about comfort, think comfortable. You may want to do the survey in a shaded area, or may you want to use a tent. Consider having table and chairs so your visitors can sit down to do the survey, or if you're using QR code, maybe not. Or a table for your market staff, volunteer, your surveyors, basically. You may want to provide water cooler and cups or water bottles. And then it was suggested that it could be nice to have thank you items for taking the survey. So that is up to the markets, how they want to do this, basically. But if you're going to do visitor account surveys or charts and dots, think location, 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 and comfort. You want it to be where people can access it easily. You want to also make sure that you have enough people, staff, to recruit your surveyors who's going to help you administer the survey. So those are the critical points for a visitor survey, especially when it comes to logistics. Oh, we're all the way up to resources now. Good timing. We have time for questions. So the Farmers Market Coalition, they have a program called Market Metrics, and if you go to the second where under resources, I had found the tools there. When I go to it now, it's broken. So that's why I'm going to try to find out if I'm able to share these documents with you, if they would give me access, what's going on with the Farmers Market Coalition. We do have membership. We're renewing our membership. If you'd like, other markets are welcome. We'll get a membership access code that I can give out to other markets. But again, I need to touch base with them to understand how they're working this year. The other great tool that I found was an actual, it was called the Farmers Market Metrics, a toolkit for collecting and using data. And this is from NOFA. It's from Vermont. And it's actually a toolkit which was recently developed 2021 or 2022, if I'm correct. And it goes into a lot of specifics. A lot of my presentation is based on the information from that toolkit. So I highly recommend that you look at that one. And then last but not least, the results of DOT survey with the USDA Outdoor Farmers Market. If you all feel like the DOT survey sounds like something that you can take on, especially on visitor surveys, please take a look at that one. That resource explains how to do DOT surveys. All right, so questions. I know we have some questions. Legita, do you want to help me out?
Absolutely. Let me scroll up here.
That was a lot, everyone, because
Um, well, there is a comment. I would love to hear how different markets are counting visitor count or calculating if you're using sample or walkthrough counts.
anybody wish to share? Do you want to wait? And does anybody want to share on that? Anybody like to speak up? I know the markets that I've visited, that I've seen the counts happening, they'll have a clicker, a count clicker, and they're posted at different entrances. And again, the size of the market is going to be critical for you. And I've not asked them if they used what type of, like, do they use a 10-minute, a 20-minute, what type of counting time frame they use. So that is something that I can try and collect some information on that. Would anybody like to share?
Yeah, this is Mark Kimmerlin. I'm with the Volunteer Farmers Market in Indianapolis. And we have a volunteer that maintains the front door. We only have one single door, especially to go in the market. And they do a continuous count, and we count or record every half hour. It's a great way for us to greet our customers, welcome them to the market, answer any questions they might have right away.
Okay, so can you repeat, Mark, can you repeat that? You do a continuous count for what time frame?
Okay, so we're open from 9 until noon. We do a continuous count during that period of time. We'll have a volunteer, one or two, and then we record every half hour the count and then type it in.
Okay, thank you.
It's a great way to have visitors be greeted and to answer any questions as well.
This is Nancy from the Irvington Farmers Market. We are in a park. People can enter from everywhere. So what I've done is simply walk around with a clicker at a given time to see how many people are there. And after this presentation, I'm going to be more diligent about keeping those records.
Excellent. Anybody else? Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate it.
This is Mandy, and I've ran a couple of markets, and I've also worked for a market house. And my superior did a thing where she did apply the GPS pings for our location, because we were a big location. It was all day, so it's really hard to do counts with multiple entry points and low staffing. But I'm kind of excited to try to do that at my future market location. And you also are getting GPS pings from all of your vendors and people close by. But if it's consistent, you know, it's the same type of GPS ping each time, you can get an idea of when it goes up and down. So I'm kind of excited to apply that.
Awesome. And that's an app, Mandy?
She was doing it through Google. So, and I'm actually meeting with her to learn more about it. I'm sure there's other ways to do it. I'm very ignorant to how to do it. But that was kind of a goal for next season to better understand that. But that just seems a lazy way to gather some data if you have limited resources.
Well, it's perfect. I mean, any data collected consistently is good data. It's not, I mean, it's important. As long as you consistently collect the data, there's nothing wrong with it. It's data. It's data that's tied to your market. So yeah, it's whatever strategy you want, but you just need to understand you need to continue using that strategy, because once you change, you're starting all over from zero potentially. Okay, what else?
Are you ready for your next question? Okay.
Yes.
Why is it important to only have visitor survey answers on a single day if it's qualitative data?
Well, they want you to tie it to counts. So then you can get an understanding of who your visitors are and then the amount of traffic that's coming in, basically. Visitor surveys are really hard to do. You don't want to over survey and make people upset, basically. So if you tie it to counts, then you have a broader picture. But you can do the different types of surveys. I mean, you could do the paper QR code one, and then you could do a dot survey. So it also depends on what you want to collect, the type of information you want to collect. So you want to be strategic. You don't want to over survey people because then they're going to ignore you. But you want to come up with a strategy that you're going to get the answers you want to get. Does that make sense? I don't know who asked that. I'm more than willing to share more.
That was Kendall.
Does that help, Kendall?
Kind of. Wait, hang on. I caught part of it, but then my sound started blipping out a little bit. So I was trying to like not along when I was trying to hear you.
Yeah, unfortunately, for some reason today we're having sound issues because I couldn't hear Mark all that great. So you don't want to over survey people. And
Okay.
the best practice is to do your visitor surveys when you do your count.
Okay, so it's not that it like affects your numbers. It's just mostly to try not to like burn people out and try to kind of do it all in one day.
Yeah.
Just so that
And
you're
you
not
want,
spending too much energy on it, basically.
well, just do it in one day. So,
Okay.
and you want to limit the questions, like basically 10 questions. I'm not sure if I said that. You don't want to have like 20 questions. So it could be, depending on how much data you want to collect, you may chunk it out and do 5 questions one weekend, and then 2 weekends later you do 5 more questions.
Right.
It could be trend. It depends. There's a lot of different data, and qualitative provides you information to like wrap around reports, to share with the media, but the quantitative data is the meat and bones of your sales. And the two together can help you see if things are working or not working.
Okay. So
Does
like
that make sense?
It does. I was thinking because we haven't had great luck with surveys so far. I've tried a couple different strategies and none of them have had both like on social media and in person in the market and with some paper stuff and at events, and none of it has been super high engagement. So I was thinking about doing like a single day visitor survey earlier in the season and then putting out like QR codes for like the last 6 weeks of the season. But is that going to be like problematic? You see why I'm asking?
I think the concern of putting it out there that anybody will get it and answer it, and you just want to capture people visiting that day.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And it's
thank
also,
you.
think of it this way, as a snapshot in time.
Okay. Yeah.
And if you correlate it with the visitor count and then you record what else is going on in that market, you have a more full, complete picture of that snapshot in
that
time.
day.
Yeah.
Okay. That totally helps.
And then I don't know if you caught, a lot of markets are doing thank yous. So if you can think of a way to give a thank you, you don't have to announce that you're doing it on social media, but when they're there, just say, hey, by the way, we have a thank you for it, like a pen or something, whatever you can do. Mandy just raised her hand. Does this help a little more? Mandy.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Oh, I just wanted to jump in about how it's on her remark on having participation kind of low. And I've dealt with that before, and I learned something wonderful from the Fresh Bucks program. But when they were doing their data collection, like somebody gets something out of it. So when they are collecting data, they were given, I think it was like 10 extra dollars on their Fresh Bucks card to spend for produce. So it may not be money, but maybe it could be some kind of swag or an incentive, just something, some sort of incentive. So someone's getting something out of it for their time. That seemed to was really helpful.
So for example, if your market has money, you could give them $1 token that they can go spend wherever, or $2 tokens. Does that help?
Yeah, totally.
And you're just recirculating your money anyway, so it's helping the community in that capacity. All right, who else? Legita.
More than one person has asked, will this slideshow be shared somewhere?
Yes, a lot of people have been asking for them, so I apologize. I will come up with a game plan on how to share it online. We've got 3 more sessions today, and I will make the recordings available and then the presentations available. I know some of you have asked for yesterday's too, so I promise I will share. What else?
There is a question and one answer. If you don't mind, I'll share both. Does anyone have, oh, stop. It keeps jumping on me. Sorry, people. Does anyone have experience doing counts in a very open market with no clear entrance? One user answered, yes, we do. I've only been managing the market for 1 year, but this seems to work for us. We are just on one city block, so it's easy to get, sorry, chat will not stay still. It's easy to get 2 counters to do a quick walkthrough.
Yes. And that was like,
someone else says we have no clear entrance and count 3 set times every market day. We then use a multiplier to get an average for the day.
perfect.
Do you want to add to that, or is there anyone else who has input?
No, and those were described on my presentation. And Nancy had shared that works for her too. And unfortunately, I mean, that's going to be reality. Some markets are open. You can't block, you can't have one entry points or set entry points. What else, Legita?
Have farmers markets had success collecting economic data? I feel like many vendors might not have time to count and categorize sales at the end of market while trying to pack up, etc.
So I have a friend who's a vendor, and I know she keeps tab of her sales, especially on Square at the market. And she has shared with me, like close to the end, how much on Square she made. She may not have, because she also gets cash. So then she'll go home and, count her cash out, but she can track sales using Square. So your vendors can, it's a question of if they'll share. And even if they just share with their Square sales, how much they sold on their Square is fine. You don't need to know total. You just need to start understanding major sales, like what the trends are with your vendor, specific vendors. Does that make sense? And I know this is a contentious topic, is gross sales, because vendors don't want people in their business. So I do understand that.
Mandy's hand is raised. Mandy, did you have something to add?
I don't know if it went down. Mandy, please feel free if you have anything to share and jump in.
Sorry, I forgot to unlower.
Does anybody have any thoughts about the vendor data and the gross sales from vendors?
There's 1 or 2 things in the chat. For sales reports from vendors, we average around a 70% return rate for vendors. We use a return box for collecting them. And then what have fellow markets done to get to that 100% return rate? That is from Hannah.
That's a good question. Kudos, Hannah. 70% is good. I'm not sure you're going to get 100%. I mean, that's the goal. but a 70% is just fine. It's better. It's better than nothing, and you're better than 50%. So I don't know, incentivize sometimes, like at the end of the season, make it as part of, I don't know what markets do. I know for the surveys we talked about giving out incentives, but 70% response rate is really darn good. So kudos. Keep it up. Keep up the good work.
Let's see. There are a couple of people want to know where and when exactly you will share your slideshow.
I've been getting that. I've been trying to think of how to share it, you all. The webinars are recorded, so they'll be uploaded, and they're currently on the Farmers Market Forum webpage. So I was thinking I will upload the webinars and then share the presentations along with the webinar. But you all give me some time. I'm a one-man band here.
Yes. Aaron mentioned, I'm scrolling again. Aaron mentioned, I know it's not counting the actual money that everyone makes, but we do a giveaway at markets and use tickets we give to people to track how many sales vendors make.
Oh, that's cool. So they write it down on the ticket and then there's a drawing. Help, Aaron, do you want to explain it a little bit?
So we will do a few giveaways during the year, and for each sale someone makes, they'll give the customer a ticket along with whatever they're buying. I apologize. Whenever I get on the phone, my dog, I wasn't expecting this. So, and then with those tickets, they write their name and phone number down and they enter into a drawing for like a gift basket that we put together of vendor gifts, that or donations that they donated for the basket. And then at the end, I count how many tickets there are. And then that kind of gives me an idea of how many sales we did instead of the actual money. And it's just another way to get at some kind of data.
Okay. So yeah, that's a good strategy. I do have to point out that if markets want to participate in SNAP EBT, they do have to have 51% of their sales be produce related sales. And you do have to kind of keep track to show that you're doing that gross sales. So again, you may need to step up and collect that data specifically if you want to offer SNAP EBT. And Legita can share about EFMNP. It is farmer based, so it's going more to the farmer. But if you collect that data, if you remember my slide, you'll also understand like the economic benefit that the sales, total ag sales, and then total SNAP and EFMNP sales have onto the community. And that's the power of collecting that type of data. If you can't, I love what Erin is doing. The raffle is kind of fun and it does give her an idea. So their data is very powerful because it may allow you to do different things with your market. I just want to be careful that you understand that the actual data sometimes is important. And if you can't collect it, you can't. Like I said, I love what Erin is doing. She still has an overview and understanding of the viability of the market on that particular day. And she's making it fun. So kudos, Erin. Anybody else? Legita, do we have time?
We'll make time. Sarah has a question. For those that use MarketSpace or other market management software, can the vendors input their sales there?
Repeat that for me.
For those that use MarketSpace or other market management software, can vendors input their sales there?
I'm not sure. I did not have time. I when I looked at the platform and what they offered, anyway, there's some chat going on, and I started that, but I misspoke because I referred just to produce, but for SNAP, it's all SNAP sales. I want to circle back around and find out if these platforms have that capacity. I know you can input vendor data. You can take a vendor application. So I don't know, unless market managers, do you know if these systems are
This
able?
is
Go ahead.
Mark again from the Broad Farmers Market. Yeah, Market Spread does have the capacity. You know, I think Bloomington collects the data and actually charges the percentage of their sales as part of the market fee. But and they do have it in there. We've chosen not to. I think we're going to go with an anonymous paper slip.
Yeah, there's different strategies. I didn't want to comment because I haven't had time to reach out. I've just in full disclosure, Market Spread does our Find a Market. It's a free service they offer state associations, which is what INFMCP is. And that's how we have a Find a Market on our website. I've not had time to reach out to manage my market. The third one is MarketWorks. They're based out of British Columbia. They're very popular on the West Coast. All right. We're coming
And
up
we have
to, go ahead.
Purvi Green, who is my colleague from Mississippi, who likes to hear what Indiana is doing, and I've worked with extensively in the National Association. Says I have one market down here that does a pretty good job collecting it, and I believe he means the sales information from vendors, and it's a simple sheet with only 2 to 3 lines, completely anonymously, and the manager does a good job selling the vendors on its importance.
Yeah, the one resource, the toolkit, has an actual sample of how you can word it, and it's based on your market. So you unfortunately you have to come up with that form on your own because it's based on your farmers and who you have selling. But we can do some more around this. So just if you have some questions, reach out to me. If you'd like to connect with other market managers, let me know and we can set up like a lunchtime meeting. So are
Christina,
we good, Legita?
Have you? Yes, so far. I think you already had the Market Link webinar in January. Was that true?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because I'm sure Amy can answer some of these SNAP related questions if needed.
Right. And the next session is the Double Up Indiana session. So if need be, I'm sure Michelle Shippey and Allie Osborne can answer that. If not, I'll take a look at those questions. I do know there's a website. They do have a website up and going, the Farmers Market Legal Toolkit, but FNS has also updated their website with all that information on it. So I can figure out ways to share that. I'll look at including some of that and dig in for everybody, the newsletter. All right, unfortunately, it is 11:05. I'm going to stop recording because we do have another